Yeah, so I've been doing digital for a long time. I'm an OG. Back in, they started managing $50, like in Google search. The last budget I was managing was about 20 million a year. It was a bigger team. Come in.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, so I've done with Michael. We did Cloudflare. It was 5 years hyper growth. All the growing pains. Got bullied by sales teams. And now we're trying to teach a little bit of what we learned through those growing pains.
Yeah. So we're gonna jump in with kind of a perspective on product marketing. So, you know,
Sorry, I have a question. Are you guys like representing individual? Are you like a company? What are you guys? Are you an agency? How do you define that? Whatever.
Yeah, I'm starting out my own agency.
Okay,
So
like
if you need
consulting
services,
business?
consulting. So if you need consulting services, we can certainly help you with that.
Looking
So,
for an agency?
yeah, if you're looking for an agency, certainly. But also really here for founders and owners, if you're just trying to get started with kind of thinking through what are some of the processes and methodologies you need to consider from a marketing perspective. The goal is here, you can walk away, I'll give you some QR codes and some templates you can take home and implement yourself just to kind of get things rolling. So that's kind of the objective here.
Got it.
So kind of we've all understand marketing to some degree, but customers essentially won't buy what they can't find or don't understand. And when you research product marketing, what are you really trying to get them to understand? You're trying to connect your product's value to an audience out there. And that audience might be known. You may have done a pitch deck. You understand there is some gap in the market, and there is some form of an audience that you think your minimum viable product will be interesting to. But a lot of times, over time, you go learning that there are different gaps and opportunities in the audience that you're looking at, and maybe audience members that you're not taking into account that you could. So my goal here is to kind of give you perspective on that. So question to you guys, can your customers find and understand your product? If you have a product or service, that's the key question we're trying to solve. And so I think the great picture here is really you're an archer, you're trying to hit that target. That target is your core customer. And the closer you get to the center, especially the closer you are at the center, the higher value product you can offer to that customer set. Go ahead.
So my question for you would be, like you said, there's different personas or ICPs, whatever.
Yeah.
How do you know, like, if you're targeting the right ICP? And especially like when you said on your landing page, perhaps, because you said, how do they find you? They probably type in Google like some keywords.
Yeah.
They end up on your landing page. Even though you might be selling the right thing, it might not be on the landing page. So I guess that's a question for later. Like for you guys, like, how do you deal with that?
Yeah, how do you know you're getting to the right audience? I think we know from looking at a lot of the market, a lot of the data. So that's when it gets into the process of, you can check over time, are these messages arriving to the target audience? So look over if you have a CRM tool, who's clicking, who's downloading your information, who are your sales team following up on, what are their titles, do those titles align with the original set of customer profiles that you define? And then over time you go augmenting your strategy to try and make sure that you're aligning the right messages to the right audience.
Sort of basically analytics, right? Like,
yeah.
got it.
And Paul will go deep on that,
Cool.
so you have a better understanding. So kind of the three product marketing challenges that I find is, building brand awareness is pretty typical. It's like, and brand can be thought of many different ways. I mean, you can pick up a book by some of the leading marketers out there, and they'll be fully focused on the Nike brand, but I think you can't get carried away with trying to build a logo and kind of support a logo. The brand can go beyond that. It's kind of be a set of values that you're connotating to your end audience. The second one is defining a target audience and that messaging. Again, what we're talking about, matching that, creating that alignment. And a lot of times that's a challenge. And then the third one, limited budget and resources. So us in marketing struggle with limited budget and resources, but certainly as founders, startups, you have no money. How can you go make an impact with very little money and resources and time to go do that? And we'll talk about that here. And so building brand awareness, like some of the common challenges in that space tends to be a lack of resources required to advertise. Advertising costs a lot of money. Paul can talk to to you about that. Certainly LinkedIn ads cost a lot of money. Without brand recognition, it's difficult to attract customers. So I mean, I was here during Startup Week. There were some founders here talking about product-led sales or product-led marketing, which is really interesting if you're Elon Musk and you have this great electric car vehicle that everybody talks about. But it's another thing if you're a fledgling startup with some really cool tech, but you're kind of hoping that your customers talk about you to other customers. It's not always easy to hang your hat on that. And then the last one, kind of word of mouth, like I'm just saying, only goes so far. So some key considerations here is like brand alignment, matching product to logo, you're matching your product to your end customer, or organic social media is an interesting play, and you can certainly build a lot of awareness with organic social media, but if you don't currently have an audience, it can be very difficult. You can rely on influencers in your segment to go drive your brand, but they also cost a lot of money. And then it also takes time to build an audience, either on LinkedIn, Twitter, you pick your platform. So those are some key considerations to think about.
You consider influencers to be organic?
I mean,
If you don't have to pay them. If you pay them, they don't, but if they like
Yeah.
organic,
I don't know
if they
what-
like,
I don't
if
know
once
what
you pay them, they
influencers
like stick up your stuff and start
Yeah, come
republishing
in.
it. That's pretty organic.
yeah, I
Well, they
mean,
get paid all the time, so like, why would they advertise for you without being paid?
Exactly.
I'm just saying that's when you would count it as organic.
it is a bit of a, it's a
Sometimes
play.
some-
What's your answer?
My answer would, it's a bit of a pay, you're paying for it,
Uh-huh.
but it is, I would say that it's kind of organic in the sense that if they are very well aligned to your product, you are kind of getting the type of personas that you want, right? But if it's somebody who's, let's say, I don't know, somebody who's out there on the fringe and you're really just trying to build awareness, it's almost like the blow-up doll out in front of the car dealership, right?
Correct.
It's not really somebody who's aligning their message to yours. So I would kind of view organic as like people who are, are willing to click on your content without paying for it. The inorganic is usually definitely paid ads, right? So let's talk about target audience and messaging. So some of the common challenges we have in this space is did you pick the right personas? I mean, straight off. I mean, you may have done a pitch deck, you may have thought about it once, but then you've moved on with your product, and you're so focused on your product and your sales process and demand gen, you don't get around to it. The other one is communicating unique value. Like how are you really digging down to next layers of value propositions? How are you augmenting your current product, taking into account customer feedback to continue to build that unique value over time, to expand your total area market and expand your opportunities? And then lastly, some of the common challenges, are you solving the right problem? So in many cases, you may have built a product, it solves a specific problem. I'm actually interviewing with a small startup right now in the AI space. I saw their demo, and it's kind of more, they're in stealth mode. It's more of like a feature, it feels like, and certainly over the course of a year, it may go from feeling like a feature to feeling like a full-fledged product. So you kind of have to look at your niche. And so maybe from the feature perspective, you could consider it as like using an API, maybe some OEM to some other larger partner who uses an API that you leverage that technology. So you got to really kind of figure that out. And so some key considerations I have here is kind of reassessing your market and pitch, analyzing the competition so you can truly differentiate that message. So one of the things I'm always looking at is, so it's one thing, so I've been in the cybersecurity space and there's this term called XDR, and so there's these terms that get thrown around left and right, kind of like AI is today. Everybody wants to be a Gen AI vendor, but how are you going to differentiate when everybody's doing Gen AI, right? It's like, what is your angle? And sometimes I always think of the example of Salesforce years ago where they say, we're not software, if you recall this, if you have seen Salesforce's old ads. And I think they're kind of like the fish swimming upstream. You're like, oh, hey, look at that, look at those guys. It's almost better sometimes to be the fish swimming upstream rather than everybody going in the same direction. So, and then also lastly, can you expand your TAM further, kind of like I was highlighting earlier, is if you augment that product over time, And then you gotta start messaging those changes that you've made to that product and understanding that maybe there's a different audience than what you originally planned. And so, limited time and resources, another one. I'm gonna go a little faster here. You know, you guys have limited time and budget. You can't just go focus on your marketing all the time. So I want you guys to walk away with some key takeaways. And there are very few dedicated marketers, often in a smaller startup, and so that's another key consideration to understand. And obviously, longer sales cycles. So if you don't have a marketing demand gen engine, you don't have processes in place for your business, you're obviously going to take longer to go sell. So how can you put some frameworks in place that are going to help optimize you or maybe your sales team to go drive those opportunities further? So how can product marketing help? So I'll tell some examples and I'll tie back to the examples as I go through my remaining slides. So I worked at Cloudflare back in 2015 to 2019, and they were the big data startup. They just gone to Series C when I joined. They just got $700 million from Intel just before I joined, and it was interesting seeing the dynamic. They were going from communicating to an audience of developers, basically, database engineers, fully focused on data. How can we manage real-time data, operational data, kind of database, data stores, and we got a new CMO, and he's like, we're switching the story from focusing on that, on the product and the features and benefits, to driving more solution-based stories, so more kind of business stories. And so we started talking about cybersecurity, we started talking about customer 360, and how you can use these technologies to go drive that story. The problem with that move from a product marketing position is that they basically walked away from all the fans that really loved the tech conversations that they were having before. And it switched to, we're talking about business stuff, instead of trying to find a nice delicate balance between communicating to technical people who really love your product and then business people who are looking to try and understand the solution.
Was that marketing strategy though, or politically internal strategy? Because if you're the CMO, you come in and you would make your stand, you ensure that you
You're very much correct.
So what happened?
That's not marketing strategy. That's he's making.
There's very much,
strategy.
very astute consideration there. Yeah. In the end, they did drive, better sales, but for a while. But I think it was because I did two jobs there actually. I did partner marketing, and then I managed their social media for a year. Okay. And so when I was on the social media side, managing social media, I could feel the variance between the two audiences.
Right.
Because they just walked away from the technical and were pushing this more business story. And so it was I tried to drive the balance, but it wasn't enough.
Were the people following you really mad that you were kind of pitching more businessy stuff?
They just went to our competitors. So they, Snowflake, if you heard of Snowflake, Databricks, Google Cloud, Amazon, they just went there. So it's like, so the problem with that is you have to think not only short term but long term. So if your audience right now is actually a user on your product, where are they going to be 2 or 3 years from now? They're going to get promoted, they're going to change jobs. Are they going to still be talking about your product 2 or 3 years from now when they're in a higher level or they're somewhere else? So I think that's for Cloudflare, that was the big problem, is that the market, the competition took those customers away. And now with my experience at Cloudflare was interesting. When I joined, they started this thing called Workers at Cloudflare, which basically allows engineers to program on the edge. And so the concept would be you build this application and you need to have very low latency. Like I think IBM used, or weather.com used us, I think. And the concept was I want to know on my phone, what's the weather in Austin? And so because they're using Cloudflare Workers I think I'm confusing it with something else. No, Workers was for development, sorry. Workers for development. The problem with Cloudflare is they were a product-led company, which was really cool, is that if you're a product manager and you go there out of college, oh man, you're building products, you're working with engineering, it's great. The problem from a marketing perspective was and I would interface with our channel account managers. And I'd say, hey, let's go talk about Cloudflare Workers, or let's go talk about Cloudflare One. And they're like, Mike, hold up. Cloudflare One has this product called Cloudflare Access. I tried selling it to a channel partner for a big deal with this major North American airline. It didn't work. It burnt my bridge with that partner. I can't go there. I can talk about Magic Transit, so the DDoS security tool that we had. So you gotta also be careful on the product side of overreaching, because then you have all these products, but then your product marketing team, the management team, are just gonna really focus on a subset that they know won't burn any bridges. So that's just another two anecdotes. Go ahead.
Quick example of a Cloudflare, because it's very product led. The product team would do whatever they wanted without talking to anyone, and they would create like product names that didn't help anything. Like, did not resonate with the people that would be using the product or the marketers, the product marketers. The Magic Transit is a great example of a terrible product name of what it did. It means nothing really to that team. And
I think workers, like you said, going back to your initial slide, is more like a feature, right? It's like, I use Worker. I mean, I know what it is.
Yeah.
You know, I feel like, you know, because I was when Cloudflare launched, I was at the office and they were like having their developer advocates like demo it. I was like, this feels like a feature of something else. This doesn't feel like its own product, right?
Yeah.
So they must have misaligned something there. Like you said, they were probably trying to build a new platform, but in reality they should have just added it as a feature of something else, right? I still use Cloudflare Works today, but you know, like very small.
From a marketing perspective, what I've noticed, and the reason why I bring these two examples up is there's a balance that I think every business needs to have between your buyer personas and your influencer personas. This is why I bring it up. So, sure, with Cloudera, my first example, you can go talk to more business personas, and you can be buyer personas. But a lot of times the buyer personas are truly influenced by the influencer persona. So I'll give an example.
Okay.
So that 1 year I did of social media at Cloudera, I had set a goal that I'm going to 10x our impressions, social media impressions, year on year. And so I knew, I did the analysis, I knew I had to get these things called employee advocacy tools. So these are tools that you do a post on Twitter, then your 20 employees will then retweet. And so I found this thing called LinkedIn Elevate. And there's a whole bunch of other vendors out there. And I did a product breakdown, I assessed the different options, and I needed a $5,000 from my CMO. I already got $5,000 from our HR recruiting, because they wanted to leverage the tool. And so the reason why I bring that up is I was the influencer persona. I was influencing the CMO to make a buyer decision. So I think walking away from your core influencers, as Cloudera did, can have a detrimental effect on the buyer personas who might consider your product.
Because you were the one using the tool. You were the one who were like championing internally to use the tool.
I did the vendor breakdown, I did the ROI analysis, and so you have to always try and keep that in mind, that your senior manager or your director or principal, whatever, they're the ones who feel the pain and want to have the right solution. The CMO or the C-level exec who might have the pocketbook, you know, might not know.
Got it.
So I'm gonna try and keep going. I can Paul sometime. So I'm not gonna go into detail here, but product marketing. This is kind of the product marketing centric view of the world. You got marketing and sales. You got product. You got customer success. You know, all these different things kind of influence what a product marketer does when we're thinking about core messaging and trying to connect core messaging to the end customers. And I'm just kind of giving you context with these slides here. This is from PMA. You know, kind of thinking of the buying center. Like I said, you got influencers, you got users, decision makers, approvers, buyers, gatekeepers. There's all these stakeholders involved in the buying decisions of new technology or new products. So any one of these, you can be a target audience for you as you build your messaging and
Do you feel
product
like when you do
positioning.
product marketing, that you already have an established target base that you then feed a new market idea to them? Or do you start completely new with a new group of individuals to sell their product? Or is there you have the advantage, because you already have your buyers, And so you're simply selling them a new product line, or are you talking just a brand new product with new customers?
Yeah, if you're, so I'll try and paraphrase what you're saying. Are you asking if I came out with a new product, am I starting from scratch again, basically?
Yes.
Yes, you are, in many cases. Now, let's say, so this was interesting, I'll go back to my example of Cloudflare. It's another thing I meant to mention on this slide. Cloudflare, a lot of these products in here, talking to different buyer personas, different influencer personas. So no matter how many products they produce, your salesperson's on the front line like, hey, I want to talk to you about this VPN replacement technology called Access. And then the next day he calls the same person, oh, I want to talk to you about Workers so your dev team can develop new product. Totally different parts of the organization. One person's in IT, one person's in either product or engineering. So when you think about new products, you do need to do that reassessment of, will I be talking to the right people with this product, even though I have a subset of people who, are going with the existing product set that I have.
Yeah, they might not be interested in the new stuff.
Yeah. The other part for context is understanding the customer life cycle. And most of us just generally know this, you start with some level of awareness, then some consideration, then they buy it, then you're looking to retain them, then you're hoping that they go and advocate on your behalf, and it kind of goes on and on and on. So these are kind of 4 baseline things to understand from a product marketing perspective. The other one is the obvious marketing and sales funnel. You've got awareness building, you've got consideration, conversion, loyalty, advocacy. It's just kind of general concepts that we play by kind of every day in our roles. So finishing off my point here is, so in my role as a marketer, building the right messaging is a huge piece of it. There's these general frameworks that we use. One of them is the messaging document. So the messaging document that I'm showing you here, and you'll be able to click for it later, is it breaks down the product positioning, your target audience, your value proposition. You can even break it down to small, like elevator pitch sized messaging bits. But it's really to try and allow you to think through who's the target that I'm going after, what's my messaging, iterate on this, collaborate with my product management team, collaborate with my engineers, collaborate with my salesperson if I have a salesperson, and test out some of these things through campaigns to your audience. And then you start seeing some of the feedback. Did that message hit? Did it not? But generally, whenever I start a campaign or start a new, even like a data sheet, I'm usually starting from this messaging document. And then when I think about a marketing campaign, so when I interface with somebody like Paul in Demand Gen on like some actual digital campaign or events or whatever, some form of promotion, I'm building kind of a brief. And this one I just threw up in a Google Doc, but I mean, you got kind of define the marketing activity, define what the topic, what it is, what it's about, who's the owner, typically it might be you. Here's the secondary stakeholder, maybe like Paul at Demand Gen would be one of them. If you're using a CRM, you want to capture it and track it some way. So like 3 to 6 months from now, you can come back and say, oh, this campaign got me so many leads or so many opportunities. When does it start? Content resources, like do I have a solution brief? Webpage I'm pointing people to. Target personas, are they buyers, are they influencers, what's their title? The status, and then if it's like a webinar or something, you probably want a title, abstract, speaker names, etc. So this, I think, regardless of the size of your company, even if you're a small startup, this is important, because in the case that you hire an agency to do some of your marketing for you, you can always come back to this. You can build this in minutes and say, hey, agency, go do this, and they can iterate on it and so on and so forth. But this is usually like the bread and butter of what, from a marketing perspective, I always try to go back to. And then just to finish off on my stuff, it's, if you're going to do a go-to-market plan, a lot of things are about launching, right? So launches are pretty, kind of the big thing. You pick a date on the calendar. You're going to have hopefully some press or a blog or some form of news. It's always good. A lot of times, us in some of the larger startups, we're looking at Black Hat, or we're looking at some major conference, and we'll align some press around that, and we'll try to be able to get some eyeballs to that. The other thing, virtual events, webinars, this is being live streamed right now, but like getting out there, getting people visible, doing trainings like we're doing this training today, meeting people, that never goes wrong. Email marketing, and I'll leave the digital marketing I'll let Paul talk to. And then finishing off with nurture. So nurture is something not to forget about. You want to make sure that once you've created these leads, somebody or somehow you are following up with these leads with reminders and so on and so forth. And then from there on out, it's really about execution, analyzing the data, how people are interacting with your content, and then iterating to make it better and better.
So the first idea was how to quickly launch or execute a digital marketing campaign for startups in a way that who should do it when, how much money, what should be the approach. But I'm going to talk a lot about assuming that everything that he talked about already, you guys, whoever's going to launch, has already done. So you have this idea of who the audience is, and the messaging is there, and how to decide where. Because I've been in many situations where we have the company trying to conquer the world with $100, right? And that doesn't really work. And also with a lot of money, not knowing what to do literally. Like, oh, we need to spend this money. And I had someone call me, we need to spend $1 million this month. Can you do it? I'm like, why? Anyway. So, first thing, quick fast facts about me. First thing is, I really like memes. So, and I'm very biased towards search, paid side, but yeah. So, I was about 10 years on the agency side, very character building experience. So I consider myself an agency survivor, great experience.
Another way to say it was wrong. Character building exercise.
Yeah.
In other words, it sucked.
I was the first, so Cloudflare is very product-led and sales-led organization as well, because by the time they hired the first, I was Series C when they started. But by the time they hired the first marketer, they had more than 100 salespeople already. So they had a huge organization with no marketing staff. And they were just building the demand generation team, where there were already some ABM campaigns. They were doing events. That's for some reason, some B2B companies, they feel that events is kind of easy, like a low-hanging fruit. Then they needed to launch digital. They had no presence online. Our competitors were bidding in our brand. And then I had to grow that program, and brought up, it's pretty intense. Best team I've ever worked with. And then I moved to SentinelOne, another cybersecurity company, where that was a very fast ramp up. The same thing with Cloudflare. They had 60 field marketers, like people doing events all over the world, and no one doing digital. We were working with an agency that really didn't do much because they were not well managed. And I came in to really ramp up, like very fast. That's my humble brag. It's very difficult to do that. To spend a lot of money, the diminishing of returns is very fast.
At this point, were you consulting at that point when you came in and were like the person that came in, they already had an agency?
No.
No. You were
Well, not directly, and sometimes.
okay.
But I had done the same thing with Cloudflare. I came in, but the ramp up was much spread out. Like, took about 3 years to do that. So the most important takeaway from you guys that I want you guys to know, pay attention to this about me. Okay, so I'm a data-driven growth hacker specialized in disruptive holistic approach to digital marketing, leveraging data-driven strategies to deliver innovative best-in-class campaigns that create a seamless, scalable ecosystem of success. That's all BS. Never use any of those words. Okay, that's the takeaway. If you see a video, a piece of content, especially growth hacker,
Oh gosh.
go run away.
I've seen those on LinkedIn a lot.
right? Yeah. So yeah, that, no, that's not how it goes. There's no growth hacking, there's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, a lot of work and time. Anyway, so how to quick launch a digital marketing campaign, and then I go to, back to what Mike was saying, that get the pieces ready, right? Like all the creative assets. Right now, all the digital platforms are very good on only asking for like a ratio size of an image. You don't need to create those 9 different ad sizes for like a display ad. And a text ad that used to be 1 headline and 2 description, now is like 15 headlines, different number of characters, right? And if the product marketer did a good job, makes your life easier on putting all that together. Videos, if applicable, but nowadays every platform is making pretty much like fundamental. You have to have some sort of video. To the point that if you don't have a video, the text images, like the text, they turn into a video with like an animation. So they can advertise on YouTube or TikTok, Facebook they do on Instagram. But that's one thing that you should, from day one, if you're a startup or haven't done anything, think about having some video content. Clear messaging, I really like about like, things have been getting too complicated in my opinion. They try to have all these different personas and industries, but I would go for have this solution focused and the business use case of things instead of trying to cater very personalized message to each individual. I think that's kind of been overused and takes a lot of work, and I have not seen enough return by doing all of that. The target audience. This is very important. Now, that's one second thing I want you guys to take away from this. The measuring and reporting is so important that it can make or break like the entire company, for the fact that once the company starts growing, starts spending more, doing more channels, it gets to a point when people start doing things for the sake of attribution, just to get like the credit for it. And whenever that starts to happen, that's when things, stop working. Very recently, like talking to just a few friends that they were running a few websites. You have a question?
But that happens like in all big companies, like it's called like resume-driven development.
I think it does happen in every company. I've seen it, and I always say, don't do things just for the sake of attribution, right? Like,
But everyone does.
Yeah, and whoever.
Like from like junior to like senior level developers. Like junior level developers, they just like learn new framework. Like senior level developers, they like develop new feature that no one actually needs.
Yeah, but now the way the market is, that will stop. Will be a lot less of that happening. It also goes back to how it is difficult to track things. Like everyone wants privacy, but perfect attribution and reporting. You have to pick one, right? Like the more difficult it is to track any type of activity, either on like digital website landscape and what is done towards the clients. Like if you have a CRM and you have all these teams reaching out to the future potential client, it gets more difficult to report and understand what's actually working, right? But very simple. Google Analytics set up 3 friends that just said, hey, can you take a look at this? This is not working. They simply didn't have Google Analytics working on their website, and one was actually a coder, like as a developer, he could figure it out, but he didn't do it right. So this is like one thing that you might need support.
Well, do you have any guidance on what attribution models startups should consider first touch, last touch, average?
Great question. The attribution conversation. I say that a good marketer will be looking into multi-attribution models, because you use those attribution models to, depending who you're talking to. So If I'm talking to the agency that's managing my campaigns, we'll be looking into performance in the platform up to I get a lead, for example. If you're talking to the sales guys, if you use any reporting from like an advertising platform, that doesn't mean anything. They only understand Salesforce. You need to speak Salesforce to them and understand what you've done in the platforms correlate to the things that they're seeing in Salesforce, for example. That answer? But I'd say always multi-touch for sure, right? Because some channels will be more effective. So one easy example. If I want to see how well like the online paid search is doing, I'll look into a first touch model, right? Like, because it's early in that journey. I don't like saying funnel because it's not a linear process, but those happen in the beginning of the journey.
Can you define first touch, last touch? I mean, I heard it before,
Yeah.
but is it just like, is in Google Ads, first touch like when they click, and what's last touch then? Is it like when they fill the form? Like, how do you define first touch and last
Yeah,
touch?
so if someone visits the website 5 times, right, the first click was on a paid search ad.
Yeah.
But then they saw they didn't fill out a form.
Okay.
They did a whole bunch of other things, read the blog, and then a week later they saw an ad on Facebook, they click on it, and then the last touch, that was like right before they fill out the form, to the platform, the last touch will be that one, like right before they fill out the form. If my conversion goal is fill out a form, right? But
the last touch on your platform.
yes, so
Okay, cool.
so then the attribution model looking into online finishes there, right? Like Google will not be tracking if an individual gets 5 emails from the sales, like from the BDRs.
Yeah.
But then when the sales organization starts looking into it, if Facebook was the last touch, depending how things are set up, will not be on that account, right? Let's suppose Visa is trying to buy, but there were 8 other people already trying to had a conversation with the company. But the way they set up, they consider, oh, the first person that we talk to will be the first touch. Then, as far as an opportunity, like a deal, we'll have this buying committee talking to the company. It's a different attribution model. That makes sense.
I mean, we can all reflect on how we buy stuff personally, right? And how you come to consider buying something. I think from a marketing standpoint, we look at the multi-touch, and sometimes you'll apply different weights to certain things that they do. So if I download this ebook that is highly relevant to the product that I'm selling, you can get super detailed on this, like, oh, we're gonna give it a higher weight. But then over the course of time, you nurture this customer with emails, events, and webinars, and they attend some of these things. And in a larger company, they're going to say, oh, it's been a multi-touch nurture with this person or people. And therefore, from the sales perspective, when I hand it off to sales, this is it's the Glenn Ross leads. It's the special leads that your salespeople really want because they've touched on your website and other things multiple times.
Let's say I'm like a shitty developer, I'm really interested in Cloudflare, I sign up to all the webinars, I learn a ton, right? And then I was like, oh, maybe our company could buy like Solution X by Cloudflare, right? But then the person who actually goes and buys the solution is like my lead engineer, right? And the salespeople, they're like, oh, we're dealing with the lead engineer. Like they're the ones who are gonna buy, maybe install it. And so like I'm like clipped out of the equation, but you spend all of your marketing money on me. And I kind of did like an internal, going back to that influencer, I influenced person inside my company to purchase Cloudflare Solution X.
Right.
So like from a statistical, I'm like irrelevant because I didn't convert to money.
Yeah, the salespeople will definitely think that.
Okay,
right?
so we're on the same line.
They
Okay.
think the reason they closed the deal is just because they took this one guy golf.
Yes,
That's
exactly. But they don't know.
Exactly.
Okay.
So one thing that I started doing, that I had to learn through pain, was to start reporting on everything that happened in that account. Right? And it's like, hey, I know you closed, but like all these engineers here, they downloaded this specific white paper, that's very technical about how we're gonna actually use the product. That really helped, and then we changed kind of this view. But on our side, marketing, we don't get commission based on that, but they do, and then when things get more complicated too.
Did you ever ask, like, hey, how did you hear about us? And then someone usually says, it was another employee, and you're like, oh, what was their name, right? Because I did that in the past.
It happens, and then so every opportunity they close, there's someone who signs, right? Usually the guy at the 80s, take him to a happy hour, get him drunk, right? Spend a lot of money. If you ask them, well, where did you hear about? Like, oh, it's this guy that I worked with when I was the other, and that's what you'll think as well. But then, that's in order to fix that, I started doing this like reporting on everything that happened in the account, and if the sales organization didn't really agree with me, then it's like, okay, let's just pause all the campaigns. And 2 months later, they'll come back crying. Like, no, please, turn it on again.
Sorry to interject, you just remind me of a story so I worked at Intel for 10 years in sales, and I supported IBM. And so part of my job at Intel, like we had this hardware server demo program. We had 30 plus hardware servers that we'd ship out to customers like WMD, Bank of America, US Navy. And to his point, I could see how we hit, like for example, Bank of America multiple ways. I did sales enablement with the inside sales team, so they knew how to talk about Intel and IBM servers. Then to Bank of America in New York City, I sent them like 4 servers to test out. And like, there's like so many things, and then you have the sales guy going golfing with them. So like, it's
they think they closed the deal, right?
They think they closed the deal, but it's a full court press.
And we'll be like this forever. Just learn to deal with it. And conversion tracking, we're talking about like a white paper. The weights we put into the different things is very important, very, very important. You need to understand. It doesn't need to be necessarily Google Analytics, whatever analytics platform you use. You need to understand the value of each action that happens on the website. So one big mistake, not that happened to me, was we're running campaigns where I download a white paper, and at Cloudflare we had this under attack kind of lead that if the website was under attack, super high value. We closed in 2 days, in a day, people were desperate. We started measuring those as the same as a white paper download. And then Google's, because the volume of conversions of white paper downloads is much higher than the desperate guys, Google starts like, most platforms, if they see that they're just gonna start pulling the spend towards that. So before you start doing anything, make sure the analytics is working. You have 1 or 2 conversions. I like having 3 levels of conversions, like a blog post read, so you know it's like an actual individual is learning. That's good for like, that's gonna be your buyer in 2 quarters, right? Then a kind of a mid-level, there'll be a white paper download, like any document download, and the most important, like someone that's ready to raise their hand and call us. But people don't call anymore. Like email.
People sign up for trials, right?
That's a good one too. Cloudflare, we had trials.
Demos and trials are great end of funnel activity. The conversion rates are usually some of the highest.
Yeah, you can go to some crazy extent. I suppose like maybe you guys had it at Cloudflare when you do your 7-day trial and you're like unlimited almost, and you see who uses the most advanced features, and then you're like, oh, now your trial's ended. If you're stuck with the advanced features, so to speak, if you really use those advanced features, you know they're most likely to retain and purchase, right? Because they tasted like the best of the best of the best. Whereas if you're just like using the, oh, I can go to a competitor that does it for free features, then like you're probably gonna lose them, right?
Yeah.
I need to learn.
You good? Yeah, we're running out of time.
So, which platforms? Gonna start something. Where should start spending money? It depends. So, understanding that you've been through that, you know who your customer is. Just try to avoid mismatches. If you want to reach out to C-level people, don't do TikTok dances. That's a weird thing that I saw at Cloudflare. They want to do TikTok. Like, the engineers are not engineers that use the product. They're not trying to do dances.
But their kids are.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't think they'll follow Cloud. Anyway, yeah.
I mean, if you're selling cars.
I just think of Canva. Canva started advertising to schools and whatever not, because they know that then kids will talk about, hey mom, look, I'm using Canva to make my presentations. Like, what the hell? And then they're like, this is amazing, and then they'll use it at work.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, my wife used to PMA at Canva. That's how.
So how was that tracked?
There.
They had
TikTok
the name of
dancing.
each kid, they.
And then their parents' name, yeah.
Well, no.
I agree with what you're saying.
Yeah.
I think what you're saying is that somebody has to hear the product 4, 5, 6, to feel
Yeah.
comfortable with it.
Well, they sign up,
And
and
they
it's
stay part
word
of
of
it.
mouth, right? Like, it's kind of word of mouth. It goes back to that, is it organic, inorganic? It's
Right.
very hard to.
I guess they're part of the buying committee for.
Yeah.
To be fair, GoDaddy like advertises itself with attractive models. There's not necessarily a one-to-one between a domain registrar. So
I don't know if TikTok is good for selling. I think TikTok's good for brand awareness. I mean, you hear the name, you associate. It's not
Depends what you
whack, it's
sell.
not a scam. It's legit.
It depends what you sell, right? If you're.
I say that
But I don't think you can sell
social,
technology on TikTok.
No, but you
TikTok.
can, but awareness.
Yeah, awareness.
Like all these PDF tools, AI tools, they're all advertising on TikTok.
yeah. I say that social has its place, more for, I don't like to talk about that. I say brand awareness. If you're gonna do it, measure engagement, right? Not actual sales but if you were a startup, if you're doing it organically, paying for some of it, like just to promote a post, you don't double the impressions, you do it 10 times more. That's one thing I've done last year a lot of times to test, because SentinelOne didn't have an organic social media person. Then someone came in and it's like, oh, let's test. It starts to promote on X and LinkedIn. The post that we promoted with like $500 was about 10 times more impressions, engagements, and all of that, right? So I say, if you do that, the byproduct, you have new followers, people who are aware of you, but use some metrics to measure that, just not just impressions. Some actual engagement KPI that's not impressions. Because if you, depending on how you set up the accounts, Google will show everything under the fold, will load so many times, but will not make any difference.
Do you ever measure waste when you expose the advertisement to people hitting either the website or downloading it without paper? I mean, do you can match that way, or do you actually take the ad itself and can measure the usage of the ad by the likes and all that bullshit?
I use all that I can, always look at a trend, but usually the platform will show like how many impressions and things like that, and those impressions doesn't necessarily mean that someone actually saw or paid attention to,
No.
It's like there's a poster on one floor here. It says like, likes don't buy groceries on your table. Like likes is not a good. It's a vanity metric. It doesn't really mean.
well, the ultimate metric is sales. Like
Yeah.
comparatively, nothing else like matters. Like
So-
if you see your sales going up, and you can like eliminate everything else as like noise, and you see that you know that thing is driving your sales up and it's working, and if not, then it's not.
Well, you cannot always attribute like sales to a specific event.
No,
Like a
that's what I'm
physical
saying.
event?
If you get like control, like you know, like it came from this or came from that, but yeah, I just,
Yeah, so that's when people start doing things for the sake of attribution. Like events, I think is a good example. I say no big deal is closed without a big, like an event. Because they need face-to-face before signing a $100,000 a year contract. But then you have a lot of people just for the swag, right? I went to a big conference in San Francisco, go to a booth, it was like, it's a cool swag. I'm not a lead, don't mind me, they scanned my badge, right? And many times the events team will go back and say, oh, look how many badges we scanned, those are all opportunities. No. Anyway. So meta promoted posts, Google, okay, my recommendation, sorry. It's Google, always. They have more data than anyone else. They have a broad reach. Pretty much think of that every website that you use a Google login, right? think of all the visibility they have. And they're doing a pretty good job nowadays on, now with YouTube video, just the Google Plus failed. They tried to do social, but I don't think I remember that. But yeah, it's great for like a full funnel, like a full journey approach to, and it's in one platform, right? You don't need to, no other platform will have this type of broad reach that Google has. So I would say, and for some context, I would spend about 80% of my total budget towards Google. I tried to lower that throughout the years. That's okay. LinkedIn is great for B2B, right? Very expensive. And then I tried to do more on the traditional social media, apps and Meta. But we ended up always going back on and on. Like, we still have a lot more impression share to be on Google. Full funnel approach, I like that. So yeah, Meta, so X, I was saying, like, telling him right before we started, it has its place. A lot of people, it's very e-commerce driven, right? So towards the end of the year, last quarter is more expensive. You need to be aware of things like that. But their targeting is pretty good. Like they know who the people that are logged in are. They have Instagram and WhatsApp. Lower cost. It's good to consider. If you don't have a lot of money, very little. For example, a friend of mine was doing $300 a month, right? If you want to do paid search, like then don't do paid search. You get, depending on the cost of this, you get 10 visitors to our website. Try to do some social media. Try to establish a bigger audience. Promote your posts and.
That's it, it's promote posts, don't put in ads.
So the promoted posts, I would do the ads first.
That's expensive.
It's, yeah, so I just read something, I think triple price, triple the cost in the past couple of years on Facebook.
That's what we're doing, I mean, it's a long-term game, but it's expensive as hell.
And now, the problem is a lot of the social media platform, the advertising platform, they you can track everything. Now they're coming with this, it's a long play, right? It's like gonna take a few months. And both are not wrong, but that's, I think, not a good product marketing was pushing to sell their platform.
But side note is, it's actual ads that are expensive, it's the content writers and guys like you that add on the big cost.
So we need to find the right guy.
Oh, yeah,
Use
it all builds up.
But-
Pardon?
You can use AI.
Some boring ass, there's no disaster AI.
The AI will be the next one to add to that sentence that I had at first. Growth hacker, AI, driven, whatever.
When the people come to me with the AI ads, I can tell you real quick, you got that from chat?
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
Alright.
So it's, I think can be used for like copy, very easy. If you have like a few, the product marketing team gives you some copy, just, okay, create this, you can literally do it, 20 characters, write this in 90 characters, things like that. Images, they have now some like paid platforms that work better, but all the free stuff there,
The best odds are when you copy like a competitor's
I actually strongly disagree with you on LinkedIn. Because if you have a low budget and you're a B2B business, I would say LinkedIn is the best because you can leverage your existing connections better.
No, but I
events
agree.
better.
Very powerful.
Because with Google and those big ones, if you're a B2B company, you're competing with huge budgets.
Yes.
And it's harder to align with your existing network. LinkedIn aligns with your existing network and existing events much more cleanly. So if you're on a small budget, it's actually easier to go in. And also, in my own efforts, I've noticed that LinkedIn gets better, or if you are doing enterprise style targeting, enterprise style content, LinkedIn gets a much better organic pull than
Oh yeah,
Google
so
does.
they're trying to be a ABM platform, right? So, go ahead.
I had a question, more of a clarifying question around, like, it's fine to talk about all the different platforms and stuff, but for the first question, like, who's your customer and how do you avoid mismatches? What's the best way to find out where your customers are? Like, what's a good source for that?
So the reason I use the C-level and the teens and kids. I would assume teens are on TikTok for selling a product, right? And if it's a C-level, it's on LinkedIn, probably, right? A lot of his,
Or email.
Well, those channels give you that breakout.
yeah, you can get that as well. But you ask it because you don't know who they are, you already know who they are. Yeah, that's to me the most important factor in any platform that you use is the targeting. So make sure you target that audience very specifically. Your volume will be low, you might not spend as much, cost per click will be high. But if it's male engineers, that's one thing I did at Cloudflare, I removed females, for example. The co-founder was a female, did not like that.
I wouldn't like it either.
Statistically, I asked for more budget, right? So I got more budget, but it's like, oh, statistically, it just showed that it converts this much more than,
Absolutely.
right? And the volume also it was 70%, 75% male, 24% female. Anyway, that's.
Are you asking though a different question, or how do you go about segmenting customer profiles for targeting?
I guess just trying to find out, like, if we have a general idea of the persona, how do we identify which platforms they're on so that we can make a more educated decision on the platforms to target them on?
So,
But do you research the platforms you're going for?
She's looking for like a 55 plus male. 60.
Oh, Facebook.
Triple A, go to Triple A.
Facebook.
Right.
Yeah, like, you have to do some research. And the reason I mentioned Google first is because you probably have a more detailed target across the web than just the Facebook platform, right? If you're doing it.
But you're right, Google has banner ads, Gmail, search, like you name it, they have everything.
Yeah.
Have you read that book Surveillance Marketing?
And
About
So
Google?
we got about 10 minutes.
yeah, on the
You can go on, we're good.
We gotta clean up by 6:30 or something.
B2B, so one thing about Google that I think is better than the other platforms is it's not whoever has the most money wins. If you set up your campaign better than someone with a lot of money, the times you two compete for a position, you beat that person, right? The big company. But that
It depends on the scale.
that means that they will
That
show up a
depends on
lot
scale
more
of
than you.
difference, yeah.
So the 10% of the time you show up together, you can still beat them, right?
Is that the index score thing?
Yeah, like all the quality score of your ad, like how you set up your landing page and the CTR, all that stuff is taken consideration. We had SentinelOne, our competitor, CrowdStrike, would spend 4 times more than we did in our brand keyword.
Yeah, but they still have much more money than like a very starting entrepreneur. So if you're
Yeah.
an early stage founding entrepreneur, that's why I said the scale of money matters. Because if you have $1,000 a month, that's different. You're not going to win.
Yeah,
Any of the
then-
time unless you go viral.
True.
So on that case, on that B2B case, I always say LinkedIn is probably the best B2B platform.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
And they're trying to be this ABM platform, account-based marketing, where you go straight to the job title, right? You get the exact job title in very specific, and it's very powerful. So, Sales Navigator, right? That's
Sales Navigator.
I never used it, but
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
they have the best lunches in the Bay Area, by the way. Should I do it myself? Do I start a small startup? Should you do it? It depends, right? There's like, do it. I'll say do it, try it. Everyone has done it. Everyone has logged into one of those platforms and they have a cousin that has done something worked. So try it.
I boosted a post.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They allow you to do it in your phone, right? Like, for some reason. Their job on the platform is to advertise that everyone can do it, right? That's, if you tried it, then they were successful, right? However, there are a lot of changes in those platforms. Any of those platforms vary very fast. 6 months ago, Google, before its generative chat, like the chat ads they're trying to figure out what to do was very different. Now they're pushing for the performance max type of campaigns. It's derailing everyone's regular campaign. Have you been through that?
Yeah.
And I say whoever learns to navigate through that first will win sooner than the ones that are trying to. I've talked to a couple of people like that. Performance Max doesn't work, not gonna do that. And I think they're gonna suffer in a year. So try it. Or don't try, don't even do it, because you will fail for sure, I promise. That's a promise I give you here. But it's part of the process. Just fail fast. It's the byproduct of trying something and failing is that then whenever you talk to whoever is going to be doing after, you have a better idea how things work, right? Don't be afraid to get advice along the way. Not the growth hacker, but get some advice on someone you trust.
Well, everybody wants to give you advice.
Right?
Everybody.
What is that old saying that advice is like assholes, everybody has it, and it don't
Right.
smell bad.
Nice. Nobody wants to hear
That one I never heard.
Mhm.
So when should I
Nobody
start
wants to
it?
hear- Yeah.
It doesn't depend. So say yes
That's
to
another
it
good one.
as soon as possible. Like Gary Vee said, like
Supposed
just
to
do
shut
it.
it down.
Hustle 5 a.m. club.
Just it's harder when you don't have as much money, right? Like as
Damn right.
Gary Vee.
That's the point.
Yeah.
So
Right.
if you don't have money, you start doing organic stuff. Organic blog posts, some posting on Facebook, social media, things like that.
I mean, I spent a lot of time in partner marketing. Leveraging other people's platforms to get your name out there can be a huge boost. So if you have a product that's aligned with a big player, like a Google or you name it, you know, you can get on there and you can talk
It'll
about
take you 6 months to get a phone call through.
You don't
If
have
you,
to-
if you don't have the network. That's where you guys come in.
Here's an example I did. I found something on Google and I wrote a blog post about it, and then the Google account for developers retweeted me.
Whoa.
And I was like, shit, free ads, right? Like
Yeah.
everyone's seeing
You are an influencer, man.
Yeah,
Ooh.
that's
Are
a
you an
great
influencer? Do you have a
strategy.
following? No.
Yeah, I do, but like
Well, how many did you follow?
on Twitter, I don't know, like 2,000 people. I'm not an influencer, but like,
Well, if you got 2,000 followers, you're not doing that. Most college girls have 5,000 to 10,000 followers.
I know, they're
That's a
doing better
different
than me.
conversation.
That's
That's a different conversation.
Going off the rails.
Never tried it? No. Okay. So at least build the content, right? That's the least, because it doesn't cost much, cost your time. With generative AI, it's much
Sure.
easier. You just start getting the pieces of the puzzle together, so eventually you can start promoting it with $100 on LinkedIn or whatever on Facebook with the old folks. Right? Have a simple plan. Always simplify. People try to do everything, spread like way too thin, go everywhere. It never works. Well, never works as intended.
You never spoke about emails. You were supposed to-
Emails.
Email campaign.
Who likes emails?
Nobody.
Nobody. It's like someone calls me, right? Like always calling me. I only talk on the phone when my mom is sick. So don't. And I still get cold calls every day.
I hate it.
Do you answer any of them?
Calls? If I do, and it's someone trying to sell a platform, because I've been parting of buying committees, right? Like, and then I download a white paper. Wow, this is interesting. Someone calls me, I write down the name of the company. I'll never buy that product ever.
Wait, I'm curious. Raise your hand if you bought something over the last 6 months that started with an email.
I started with an email.
Yeah.
They had no idea what it was. Can you share what it was?
Yes.
Was
I do not have salespeople, and so some guy sold me the fact that they were gonna be my salesperson for like $200 for 1 month, and
Oh my.
I purchased
so
it.
many red flags.
But guess what? I learned how to use Apollo, which is another email platform, and I got 2 leads out of it.
Oh, there you go.
How about social media? Over the last 6 months, have you purchased something off social
Was
media?
Amazon social
Product?
media?
Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube.
I might have done
Product?
something. I think I got these nasty ass eyeglasses from China. It took 7 months to get here, and they're not even worth a shit. I did that, and I'll do it again.
I bought cycling shoes like last week from social media.
Ooh, cycling shoes?
Yeah.
Man, yeah, I'm talking about size and fit. I always
Does it matter
to
if
try
it's
and
specialized, like-
Clip?
Yep.
Video.
Are you like it?
Yep.
Great
Oh, no,
question. I would do any video other than no video. right? But then I'm not the guy that's like, oh, what the audience like as far as the creative side, what's better?
Have you, anecdotally, do you have any opinions?
What's that?
Anecdotally, do you have any opinions about what performs better? Like, if it's like a person who's talking versus like faceless videos, or just like.
So I see a lot of the faceless being very low quality, right? And people, whoever puts time to do the face, the fake background, the fake podcast,
Yeah.
tend to have I see a lot of engagement. I know it's BS, but
A lot of people don't know it's BS.
I know.
And they will take, on social media especially, they will take, and LinkedIn aside, they will take a low quality video as being more reliable than the high quality video because they feel like they're being sold to when it's a high quality video.
True.
Wow, where did you get that fact from? I mean, is that an assumption?
I know, I've been in marketing for quite some time.
No,
And there's data that says that people mistrust it so much,
Yeah.
they'll take a low.
Actual conversion, so that would be supportive data.
Yeah.
I think it's because people assume that video is harder to fake, it's more like harder to make. They think it's someone took time to do this, but right, it's like with some video AI platforms, you like make video like this nowadays.
There was a trend, so when I did social media back in 2018, 2019 at Cloudera, I sat next to the, senior director of creative, and she hated me sometimes, cause I'm just like, I need to get freaking posts out today, and I need some creative right now.
Yeah.
And she's like, well, I'll give it to my team and send in the Jira, and we'll make you this beautiful piece of content. And I'm just like, no. So I get on Canva and I
There
make
you
my
go.
own stuff. I go take the brand colors and fonts and everything and just build my own little video or GIF or whatever it was. But yeah, I mean, I think movement is always going to be key, but I think the authenticity of lower quality comes through sometimes. They're like, oh, this isn't highly produced, and I'm like really being sold
Depends on
to.
what you're selling into who.
Yeah.
That- exactly.
Not a
Yeah.
$100,000 product, you
I
can't.
see
Yeah.
CMOs saying this thing, you know, I don't
Yeah.
buy
And there are
it.
I've
people
seen
who-
videos
Yeah.
of Elon Musk
Like,
where it's
it's
like
all
saying,
tied
buy
together.
this, and I'm like, Elon Musk never said that. They just like altered, you know.
They actually,
with
they
AI.
try them on YouTube as well, like, I see them
I've
as
seen
ads on YouTube.
Yeah, like fucking.
You always gotta risk that Elon finds it.
I was like, there's no way this is real.
Completely different consumer groups though.
It's even worse, like, if it's like in a different language, because then like, there's no way a customer to know if it's fake, right?
Yeah, well, just skip that one.
So the last slide, a few things for you guys to remember. Simplify, don't overthink it. Do the basic first and master the basic. Be patient, you're always gonna fail, nothing's gonna really work immediately. If it does, you're just lucky. And if it worked once and you might try to do it again, it might not work the same way. You need to learn to navigate kind of through that. Don't be afraid to ask for help, not the growth hacker. And this is one very important thing. I was saying the correlational data, the trend is your friend. Look into every single data point you can throughout time, whenever, so you understand how things are correlated to our actual sales, right? Sometimes you have like an outlier type of deal. It was a month that you tried Facebook for the first time and actually, oh, maybe it was because you're already Facebook. But keep looking into that data, going back as far as you can, so you understand how each activity correlates to our bottom line. That's it.
Further down. Just want to put it that. Those
Yeah, yeah,
templates
sure.
that I had, I wanted to show real quick.
Sorry. Do you have a slide with your emails or something?
Yeah, would you
Yeah,
get
both
that?
the thank you, you can reach out to me there, if you wanna take a picture of that. And yeah,
Email?
get a free complimentary assessment if you'd like, we can talk to you about your product marketing or digital marketing plans if you'd like.
You tell everything
Why
we're
don't
doing
you have
right.
like your own domain name or something?
What's that?
Why do you use Gmail?
I haven't created my own domain yet, that's why.
I like it's MLM at the start.
Yeah.
Yeah, because if I put lowercase, sometimes confuse it for an I.
Right.
And Gmail, for some reason, I'll get these emails from somebody else with my same
The
last
way he
name.
does it, you pay him, he pays me, then I pay
Exactly.
someone else.
There you go. And then if you want.
We'll get rich.
Yeah, if you want the messaging doc, the marketing brief, I also have a content mapping. Feel free to scan those, you can, and I'll put this available, I'll email it out to everybody. But just in case you wanna just use those things. Cool, thank you so
Awesome.
much.
Pizza, if you guys
Thank
want,
you.
please eat the pizza, because you know how to take that back. Take it back to Costco, please.
Very good.
Wasn't
Yeah, did you register event, is that right, or we have, okay.
In Ukraine?
No, you were in Ukraine.
Was that?
Where did you see it?
I walked up and downstairs and that was.
Right now?
What's up? It's called Kaiser.
It's still around. I run a company that makes sales. We do.
Oh, yeah, we can cover.
Oh,
wow. That's great.
Back in the middle.